Hey, what's happening, guys? Thanks for tuning back into the channel today, right here at the Rustbelt Mechanic. Today we've got the project side by side back into the shop, and we're going to be going over something today that not a lot of guys think about on their off-road machines, and that is their alignment. So these guys, they're taking them off-road, but they also don't realize that they're also driving these things on-road probably 30-40% of the time to go between driving spots. So the alignment is what we're going to be checking today to make sure we don't ruin these nice brand new tires and everything. Also, to be able to get some more adjustment into the rear of the vehicle, we've got some hookups from Agency Power going on this thing as well. Stay tuned. So the rear suspension on these X3s are not really adjustable. The only thing that we really have for adjustment is in the shock in the way of preload, maybe some ride height, but anything to do with alignment, jounce, or anything like that that would have to do with these rear trailing arms, they are not adjustable at all. On top of that, these are definitely a known failure point for these X3s just because hollow tube design in these, so they are not really anything strong to be able to speak of. So we're going to be changing that today with some stuff from Agency Power. Also going to give us some adjustability to be able to adjust our steering angle and everything with this vehicle. So I actually followed this down the road the other day. I had my wife drive it, and the machine is actually dog tracking probably a good 6 to 8 inches. So we really want to figure that one out. We don't want to be wearing things out too prematurely on it. So hopefully this is going to give us that adjustability that we really need. Let's go look at the parts that we got sitting. Here we have our rear arm replacement from Agency Power. These are one solid pieces of aluminum all the way straight through, solid milled, so these things are not hollow and junk as you guys can tell from the factory ones. Also have really high-end heim joints on both ends, and each one of these ends are fully adjustable. So we're going to be able to adjust what we're doing with each one of these so we can adjust our toe set, camber, and that kind of stuff with the rear suspension. So really great to be able to set up that. We also picked up a set of their adjustable sway bar end links for the rear. Also a major known point for the X3s that these fail, the factory ones at least. So these also really heavy duty heim joints on either end, adjustable to be able to get a little bit of the tension set up right on the machine, be able to get this thing set up right for what kind of a suspension setup we've got with these. Hopefully this stuff will be able to give us a greater amount of adjustment in the rear so we can get our alignment all set up. So first, before we get into the alignment, let's go throw this stuff on. Really not going to be that big of a job. Let's go get her done. First things first, we're going to get our rear plate off. These are going to be 18. At this point, you also want to make sure you jack and support the rear end, get the tension off of these so the bolts aren't pried in one way or the other. So we're going to be able to remove that one, and then we might have to get a pry bar here and remove our back plate. All right, now that we've got our plate off of there, now we're going to be replacing these one pair at a time. Agency Power says that it's easiest most to do your top ones, lower ones, then your middle ones. So we're going to do it in that order there. See how we get going on this one. So we're going to remove this one from here, and then we're going to move to our outer bolts, which are going to be right out here as well. They say to remove the rear wheels, but honestly, with swivel, you guys can get to these things pretty easily and not have to take your wheels off either. So we're going to get those off and take these over to the bench, these top ones over to the bench then. Now we've got our radius rod, the upper one, over here to our bench, and we're going to be matching it up to our rods that we have from Agency Power. Now your longer set, you've got 4 of them that are pretty much the same, and then you've got a longer pair. The longer pair is probably going to be for the middle ones. Those are longer rods. But we're going to have to match these up to our ones from Agency Power. We're going to have to get the length set up correctly, so we're going to want to loosen up our jam nuts here. And then we're going to want to unscrew each one of these sides. Don't really want to lose our bushing ends. And we're going to unscrew these sides individually. And you want them to be about the same on either side. You don't want more threads sticking out on one side than the other. And then we're going to be matching this up to the factory one to see where we're at with placement. We want to have the exact same measurement for that one. Now we are pretty much dead lined up with the factory ones at that point. So we're going to take our jam nuts then, and we are going to kind of tighten these down to the middle so we don't lose where we're at on these. And we will torque them down, obviously, after everything's all together on the machine. But at that point, once we have our distance on these radius rods all set up, we are good to go. We can go ahead and put these back into the machine. Don't forget your bushing ends for the heim joints as well. All right, now we've got everything put into place here. All of our radius rods are all lined up, looking pretty nice. Got the jam nuts kind of sunk down in. We'll torque those down for sure here in a little bit. Got the plate all back on. Now we need to torque down all of our radius arm nuts. We've got the 6 here and these 6 out towards the ends with an 18 and 19 millimeter nuts with those. All of these are going to torque down to 77 foot-pounds. Normally on a vehicle that had standard bushings and everything, I would say normally you have to lower the vehicle and get it jounced before you tighten these things up. However, with these, you've got your heim joints that are able to twist inside of the joints as well. So really it doesn't even matter. So go ahead and get yourself lined up with 77 foot-pounds and torque those down. Next in the process, we've got a pretty simple one. We're just going to be replacing these sway bar links right here. You got a 21 millimeter to hold on to the shaft while you take the 18 nut off of there. Then here on the bottom, you've got an 18 bolt and I believe an 18 nut on the back side of it. There we go. And then there's our sway bar link. All right, now I've got our agency power end links here, and I've got them set to the depth that the factory ones were set at also. We'll be able to do some adjustments down the road on the fly, obviously, but just to start things off, that's what we're gonna kind of put them to. And then we've got our factory hardware for the lower side. And then our upper, we'll utilize this hardware from Agency Power and put that in there. And then we've got nut for the back side. Gonna tighten that one up. It's gonna be a 10 mil Allen, 19 mil nut here. These are 18 still. Also gonna tighten these down to about 75 foot-pounds. That's what the factory foot-pounds is for this. So that's what we're gonna do that to. All right, now we've got all of our suspension components installed and torqued down all into place. Now what we're gonna have to do is take the unit and back it off the rack, and we need to just drive it around, get everything jounced into place, because like you guys saw earlier, we had to jack up the rear end. That moves the tires in, doesn't create a nice environment for starting our alignment. So we're gonna need to get our alignment started, back off, and we're gonna jounce everything into place, and then we'll hook up everything on our Hunter alignment machine here. Now I know this alignment machine is going to be a little bit more advanced than what everybody's used to seeing, but I'm pretty sure that we can get it done with this thing, even though obviously we're not going to have any kind of alignment specifications or anything from Can-Am to be able to use on a Hunter alignment machine. But with another couple of inputs, I think we're going to be able to get it pretty close. Now I've already gone through the process of already kind of calibrating everything, and what I did was I put in a vehicle. I put in a 2002 through 4 CRV, a Honda CRV. Obviously it's going to have independent front and rear suspension, so we've got that full adjustability on this one, and we can see already how far off my steering really was. The thing, when I followed it the other day, I had my wife drive it and I followed behind it, and I could see that it was dog tracking down the road pretty good. So with this adjustability, now we're going to be able to get things really dialed into shape. Our caster, not really worried about today, because off-road machines where your caster has to do with, that has to do with the rotation forward to backward on the top to bottom. That is your front wheels, and that's your ability to rotate and turn back to center on its own, which on these things, I'm not really worried about that one. The front camber, I don't think we're going to be able to adjust much with the setup that we have here, but the rear, we've got all of that fully adjustable, and we're actually not going to be all that far off on this one to be able to keep things pretty much as straight as we can. Another big thing that I want to put is that I put about 150 pounds of weight into the driver's seat, because these, with the suspension, it really does make a big difference when you put any kind of weight into the machine in how it drives. So put that weight into there, so that is going to kind of be just like a driver or somebody sitting into the machine. So now we're going to adjust our toe. We need to get this thing all straightened up so we can be going down the road straight. Start off with the rears. Now in the rear here, our toe adjustment is going to be done with this middle bar right here, because it is on the middle portion, which allows the spindle to kind of turn front to back, you know, on the side. So if you guys are worried about the agency power or everything kind of really lining up here, and you want things really dialed in, you're not going to be so lucky on that one. Obviously, we've got everything lined up with our top and our bottom ones, and our camber is in, so we don't need to do any adjustment on that one. But with our toe, we've got our jam nuts here that we've got to loosen up with our 24. All right, we've got our jam nuts loosened up, and then to adjust our toe, we're just going to be turning this rod right here till we get into the green. And once we get everything turned, just slight little movements at a time, and that's going to put our left side right into place right there. And we're going to lock our lock nuts down and then adjust the other side. There we go, all into place. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten down our lock nuts and move on to our front. Now with the front suspension, to be able to adjust the front toe, we've got our tie rod, which is a heim joint end right here on the front bar. This one is connected then into the gearbox, the steering linkage. So loosen that one up, 22 millimeter nut, and then we're just going to rotate this entire shaft right here on the inner tie rod. It's going to allow us to adjust our front toe. And right about there looks pretty darn good on that side. And now the same thing with our driver's side. All right, see if I can get it to move here. This side's a little tighter. And right about there. Looks about perfect. How about that? I don't know about you guys, but for a side-by-side, something that's mostly off-road, I'd say that's a pretty darn good looking alignment for just one of these machines. Well, I just took a quick rip down the road, and this thing is tracking perfectly straight down the road. That is exactly what I wanted it to be able to do for that time that I am driving it between like work and home, just for the random weekend stuff into town. All the off-road stuff, obviously you're not going to know because you're adjusting and changing steering so often it doesn't really matter, but for the on-road, we are going to be tracking right, and we're not going to be wearing out our tires prematurely with that one. So if you guys have any kind of qualms about any kind of alignment, that's exactly what you can do. A lot of alignment places are just like, no, we can't really align side by side, so that's not what we do. Well, this just goes to show you that a standard automotive alignment machine can definitely align a side by side. So if you guys wanted to, go into your local alignment shop and just say, hey, align me to one of these CRVs, and everything looks pretty darn nice. At least it's going to get you close into the ballpark, especially with your toe set on these. You're not going to be dog tracking down the road, and you're not going to have any kind of weird cross hashing and feathering on your tires, ruining them prematurely. So if you guys are looking to get that done, that's how you're going to be able to do it. The side-by-side videos are going to keep on coming out. We've got a couple more big things coming from Agency Power. We've got their big brake kit on the way. Actually, it already kind of arrived, but arrived with 2 sets of rear calipers, so unfortunately we couldn't install that right away, but that is going to be one of the upcoming things for this. Also, we're going to be entering this thing into the dirt drags at the Cole Motors Freedom Truck Fest this next weekend on September the 12th. So it's going to be a great time. We're going to be able to put this thing through the dirt drags, put it up against maybe some 1,000 horsepower Duramaxes and Cummins. I think it's going to be a great time, so you'll want to stay tuned for those videos coming up. That's about all we've got for you today. I appreciate everyone tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification, and get ready for some more awesome content coming down the road. We've got some great stuff. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and as always, you guys stay awesome.
Rocking and rolling. He's gonna spank you.
I don't think so.
You're just hurting feelings today, man.
Hurting everybody's feelings.